So we're going to finish the second part of our notes. And I wanted to create this screencast instead of me standing in front of you. So I just want to glow over your notes for a second. So at this point, you should have information on land purchases, Louisiana Territory, governmental policies, Indian Removal Act, Native American nations from the Cherokee, Chickasaw, other five Native American nations, the Seminoles, the Creeks. We had three main term vocabulary: speculation, so it means like buying something in hopes of driving up the price. So Andrew Jackson was a land speculator, so he would try to purchase up land, definitely as he was a military leader, in the hopes of selling that at a huge profit. Sovereignty can refer to the United States, but also Native American tribes as well. Do they have control to be able to rule over themselves? And lastly, talked about assimilation. How does a maybe minority group fit in or adapt to a dominant group? So Native Americans like the Cherokees cut hair, learned English, changed their name, converted to Christianity. We also had the term manifest destiny. It was the United States' belief that it was their destiny to head west, to spread democracy, to spread Christianity, and use the land what they thought was the most appropriate ways. We also have westward expansion. That's where Americans are heading west of the Mississippi River, heading to places like California, Oregon, and then obviously Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the United States government in 1803, purchased by Thomas Jefferson. This term Jacksonian democracy, which you will probably encounter in high school, also people will mention like Jeffersonian democracy. Jeffersonian democracy means sort of giving Americans more an opportunity to buy their own land, purchase their own land. Jacksonian democracy referred to maybe opening up voting for white males. And he was seen as the president of the people. Again, maybe in 2019 is not so popular. You should understand the Indian Removal Act is a congressional piece of legislation to remove Cherokees and other Native American tribes west of the Mississippi to Oklahoma. It expanded slavery, so cotton could be grown in these places, especially places like Mississippi. Mississippi had the largest amount of millionaires in the United States in the 1800s. There was a strong federal government, and the Trail of Tears referred to the Cherokee and other nations being removed against their will to Oklahoma. We believe 2,000 to 4,000 Cherokee died along the way, not counting other Native American tribes. So I want to go back to the PowerPoint. And so I'm going to, obviously, this is our essential question. You have a test coming up this Friday. And I'm going to kind of move along to the point where we stopped. And I want to talk about the United States gaining more land in this time period, specifically Florida. Initially, Georgia was used as a barrier to Spanish exploration, moving into Georgia and the rest of the 13 states. But in 1819, the United States started to encroach onto Florida or move on into Florida. And so the president at the time, James Monroe from Virginia, sent Andrew Jackson to the border to protect the U.S. border. Jackson took it on his own to invade Florida and overthrew the governor. And eventually, Spain was losing control of North America anyway, and Spain decided to sell the United States Florida for $5 million and also control of Texas. Now we have the pretty much the territory that were once part of the Mexican government that the United States acquired and got in many ways. So in 1820, the country of Mexico earned their independence from Spain. And to populate parts of modern-day Texas, the Mexican government encouraged Americans to come to Texas. Stephen Austin was one of the first to come in. He was known as 300 families who were brought there. They could go there, but they had to become Mexican citizens. They had to convert to Catholicism. They had to be a Catholic, so if they were Protestant, they had to convert to Catholicism. And they had to follow Mexican law. And that one law being you could not bring slaves, or you could not bring slavery into Mexico. Even before this, the United States citizens were coming illegal, so illegal immigrants were coming into Texas from the United States, and then the Mexican government finally stopped allowing the United States to come to Mexico, to Texas. This is a fort in San Antonio called the Alamo, where there was a famous battle. People always talk about, remember the Alamo. So we have a Texas Revolution, so they break away from the Mexican government. The leader, Stephen Austin, went against the Mexican leader, Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. For a while, Austin was jailed. Eventually, in 1836, there was a huge standoff at this place called the Alamo, and pretty much all Americans were killed, except a few, from women to children, some enslaved people. So eventually, this battle, or this revolution, ended with the United States citizens in Texas defeating the Mexican government in Texas, and eventually Texas became their own country. They were known as this Lone Star Republic. They wanted to be part of the United States, but many people in the United States they did not necessarily want Texas to come into the United States, because it would break up the balance between slave states and free states. So eventually, in 1845, the president at the time, James K. Polk, allowed Texas to come into the United States. So in 1845, California will come in very quickly in 1850. But to balance this off, we have there's a fight between the United States and Britain. Britain claims certain parts of Oregon Territory, so that's Oregon, Washington, modern day today. And these parallel lines that run, they run sort of north and south. And the United States wanted the 54 and 40 lines, which run in modern day Canada. The United States and Great Britain was not going to allow that. Eventually, in the 1840s, there was an agreement that Great Britain compromised, and so did the United States. They split Oregon in half on the 49th parallel. So the United States got the southern half. So the United States is acquiring a tremendous amount of land in this time period. In 1846, the United States is looking on the Mexican territory. So if you look on this map here, this whole kind of area here in yellow is owned by the Mexican government. Also, obviously, this is modern day or Mexican government as well, even parts of Texas. And so the United States is looking for this land. Even the president, James K. Polk, definitely wants this land. So they're looking for a way to get this land. So there's a disagreement. The United States claimed that the border is on the Rio Grande, with the Rio Grande would be moving a little southward. The Nueces River would be parts of Texas. So the United States sends troops to border patrol. Conflict breaks out. And eventually, there's a United States soldier that is killed, and then quickly James K. Polk declares war or sends troops. Some people, this is a reason just to try to acquire Mexican land. So for 2 years, the United States goes to war with Mexico. The United States has better weaponry, more money. Eventually, their military leaders, led by Zachary Taylor, Winfield Scott, even Robert E. Lee. Think about Ulysses S. Grant. A lot of these younger men just out of West Point get experience in the Mexican-American War. Eventually, by 1848, with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, ends the war. What really, also at this time period, got the people of California declare their independence. There's a reason why there is a bear on the California state flag. They quickly create their own republic, create a flag, and they try to have their own independent land from the Mexican government, eventually claimed by the United States. By 1848, with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the United States gives the Mexican government $15 million, and pretty much the United States increases its land by 25%. Some people say, like, when did the Civil War start? Some people say it's 1861. Some people say that with this increased land, the first shots of the Civil War start at the Mexican-American War. That with this land, with debating over this land, the issue of slavery is brought up over and over, eventually leading the United States to war to settle the issue on the institution of slavery. So, and the last piece of land, and this, you might say, well, what's the whole point of the Gadsden Purchase? The big point is this is a way to connect the East Coast to the West Coast by railroad. That is the main form of modern transportation. The car, the automobile, will not be instrumental until the 1910, 1914 era. So it's railroads. So they pay $10 million for the southern part of Arizona and New Mexico to connect the railroad with California and the West Coast. So at that point, the United States is a huge amount of land. We've talked about the Donner Party. The importance of the Donner Party, and of course, survival, but it also talks about how treacherous this journey can be, and also it speaks to the need of a better form of transportation, that being the railroad. So this ends the screencast for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it helps you for your test. And I'll talk to you later.